Hey, welcome back. This is Edithson Abelard, and in this video, we're going to do slight modifications. When I say slight, I mean very slight modifications to our top here, and then we're going to go ahead and look at our final can and make any modifications that we need, and then we're going to do some retopology on this and come back and get ready to paint this. So first, let's start off with, I just don't like these straight lines like this. So I'm going to just bevel all of these edges. Now, once again, we are making this for games, and there's a slight chance that you may never ever see this, but I want to go ahead and do it anyways, because if we want to use this can as a base later on, we'll at least have it already modeled, and we don't have to go back and make any modifications and try to bring a game asset from a low quality up to a high quality. So that's all I'm doing now, is just making it a higher quality mesh just by adding a few things here and there. We hit 2, we can see how it looks like, and it's smooth. Right here definitely looks a little flimsy, but that's okay. And that's because, once again, you know, in my, if you remember my Illustrator file, you can sort of see the path right there. But if you wanted to, you can grab all the vertices and you can actually stretch this while you have it out here. Let me go ahead and let's grab all of these faces. Oh, excuse me, vertices. And I'm just literally going to stretch them. Oh, looks like I have a orphan there. There we go. So I'm just scaling them. I'm going to drop those and grab the center portion. If we want, we can rotate these just a little bit. Actually, let's do this one by one. I'm going to grab these sets and scale them. And just by scaling them down, I can actually straighten those vertices. So that's what I'm trying to do. Straighten up some of those vertices. Okay, so we have a little bulge here, which is fine, and that came from when I used a uniform scale instead of making it, you know, go either in either X or Y direction. So we'll scale this up again. Come into this portion, scale this up. And now you see we're still flat. We don't have to worry about eyeing anything. Then we just scale inwards here and here, and there you go. So now I'm pretty fine with the way this is coming out. So let's go ahead and bring this down and look at what our can looks like. Well, actually, excuse me, not that. We want to add that to the current one. Add selected objects. There we go. So now our selected objects are all there. So when we take a look at this, now you can see, you know, if let's say you want to use this later on, you can see you have the top here. You know, you don't have to zoom in all the way, but now we have the option of showing this, you know, a nice view of our soda can and being able to fully come around it. Now we can get rid of this because we're not going to do that portion again. Now let's look at here. All this banding down here, you know, it's because of different size polygons and how our actual bevel came in, but that's all fine. We don't have to worry about that right now. I'm going to grab this edge. I'm going to do the same thing and just bevel it. Once again, I just prefer not to have those super straight lines because, as I said before, there is no such thing as a straight line in nature. So this just helps some of these pieces look just a little better. I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy with this. Yeah, definitely. So here's what we're going to do now. This scale information, this translate information. If we scroll down, we have all this beveled and split, and all that information can actually Oh, this one's even worse. All this extra information can actually be very harmful later on down. So what we're going to do is I have these shortcuts that I added here, but I'm going to actually go to the menu and show you exactly what I did. I'm going to do delete all by type, and I didn't use any deformers, but we're going to do anyways. We're going to delete all the history. We're going to non-deformer history. Now this is working for all of them. And then our final thing is for us to freeze transformations. So down here in the modify, freeze transformations. Now you can see that zeroes everything out, and we have no more inputs. As you can see, we have no more inputs, but we still have to zero this out. So we'll just freeze transformation. All right, cool. So now that we did this, really our next step is we really can get rid of this right here. And what this is this is a mess. When you're working with games and you're doing higher quality pieces, what's going to happen is you're going to have to subdivide. In order to get better quality, you need to keep subdividing. So right now we're looking at how many faces? So we're looking at roughly, all right, so we're looking about, we'll say close to 1,200 faces, but really what you'll end up having is this will skyrocket up to millions of polygons when you're working on more intense characters. And by having a very stable mesh, you'll be able to easily subdivide. So what I'm going to show you is what happens when we actually subdivide this. And we've been doing this by just pressing 2 just to get a quick preview. But what we want to do with this mesh is actually subdivide it. And subdivisions are simply going to make it is going to add more detail. So it's very similar to if we had gone ahead and created edge loops. Okay, that one's not going to like it. So what's going to happen is we're basically going to be creating edge loops when we subdivide. And it's going to keep creating these edge loops and edge loops and edge loops and edge loops. And so as you can see here, there's more and more and more detail. And as I add more edge loops, I have more and more control. We should have made a copy of this first. Okay, so now let's say I want to come in here and I want to move this slightly. I'm just going to grab some faces in here. Actually, let's make them vertexes instead. Let's grab these. So now you can see I have just a lot more control. I can just move just a few points at a time. Whereas if I use, let's say, this with less faces, when it comes out, it just juts out. Whereas this one, as you can see, I can gradually make changes to it. So that's what our subdivisions are going to do. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to undo all of this. It's a nasty undo process. Oh, we ran out of undos, but that's fine. That's one of those things that happen when you start doing too many things without copying or making references of your objects. So luckily for us, it is not anything horrible. So we're just going to go ahead and grab all these extras. I'm going to say you're an extra. And then we're going to shift and delete those edges. So no harm, no foul. All right, so now I just want to show you what this is going to look like when we add divisions to this or subdivide it. If we come into here, we can go ahead and click on here, number of divisions. We want to make sure this stays as quads. Most game engines go with tries, but we don't need to do this at that point. Unity will actually do all this conversion on its own, so you don't have to worry. Just give it the FBX and it'll be fine. So let's go and hit apply. Now you see this actually creates nice even distributions, which is really helpful when you're adding more detail. You don't want some longer and or wider than others. But you see in here gets a lot more detail, and here gets a lot more detail. But then you see this weird star pattern. If we apply again, you see the star pattern gets multiplied. So when you look at this, let's say you wanted to add more detail here. You go into a ZBrush or a Mudbox. You start painting in some detail here. Because this is uniform, the detail will hold a lot better. Whereas inside of here, this shape is actually going to, as you keep subdividing, you're going to keep getting more and more erratic shapes like this. And to tell you the truth, if you're trying to bend a grid, it's so much easier to be able to grab a point here and make a slight modification to that one point. Whereas over here, your points aren't really the same. So when you start modifying, it's going to keep getting weirder and weirder. And the bottom should not be any better. At least it's an even distribution of weirdness. But so what I'm going to do now is do some retopology, and we'll keep this version here, and then we'll actually export it. Actually, let me do that now. We'll export this out and do some retopology. Actually, I should. You know what? It doesn't even matter how dense this is now, anyways, because doing a retopology works best when you have dense objects to begin with. So I'm going to leave this as is, and I'm just going to select. Make sure I delete and freeze everything. I just cleaned it up, that's fine. All right, so make sure everything is frozen, and I'm going I'm going to export them out separately. And when it's time to do the UVs, we'll get into UVs afterwards, but we do want those together when they're in the UV stage. So I already created a models folder, but that's going to be confusing because I was using that for some other things. So we'll leave this in this scene area. We'll go and create, we'll say models in here. And we're going to create soda can, because we are going to work on some other ones. So we're just going to export out a soda can. Get rid of that. I know this was so lazy, hitting G again. But G, it does save a lot of time. You don't have to do the same commands over and over again, especially when you're repeating them. So we're going to do soda top, and remember, I'm just exporting out the selection. I'm not exporting out the whole entire scene, and I'm exporting out as an OBJ. You can do FBX if you want, but OBJ is nice, clean, and will work for what we needed. So next, I'm going to work on this retopology real quick and jump back in here and show you what it looks like. Edithson Abelard, I'm out.